So, you want to own a casino. You find a building, you hire a few dealers, you bolt some slot machines to the floor, and you sit back while the chips roll in. On paper, it barely looks like a business. It looks like a faucet somebody forgot to turn off. And there is something genuinely strange buried in that. Something that makes a casino unlike almost any other company on earth. It is the only legal business where the math guarantees you a profit on every single dollar that crosses the floor. Not most dollars, every one. The wheel is honest, the cards are real, the dice are clean, and you still win over time. And yet the people who own these places, some of the richest, most sophisticated operators alive, go broke doing it. Regularly, spectacularly. Buildings that cost billions get sold off for the price of a parking lot. By the end of this, you'll understand how both of those things are true at once. How a business with a mathematical guarantee built into its bones can still ruin the person who owns it. And what a casino is actually selling once you stop staring at the flashing lights. Because a casino is not really a gambling business. It's a machine that turns a mathematical certainty into cash. The certainty is the easy part. It's yours the second you open the doors. The hard part, the part that quietly decides whether you retire rich or hand the keys to a bankruptcy judge, is surviving long enough and cheaply enough for that certainty to actually reach the bottom of your ledger. Everything else in the building is a cost racing to eat it first. Let's start with what it takes to get in, because there is no single price of admission. There are three completely different businesses hiding under the same word.
At the small end, there's the regional casino.
A modest floor of slot machines, a handful of tables, a bar, a parking lot that fills up on the first of the month when the local pension checks land. You can get into that world for a few $1,000,000, sometimes less, and it behaves like a boring, steady, recession-resistant little cash business. In the middle sits the mid-size property, a real resort with a hotel, restaurants, a proper gaming floor, pulling players in from neighboring states. Now you're talking hundreds of millions to over $1 billion to build. And then there's the top of the market, the Las Vegas Strip mega resort, where the numbers stop making sense to normal humans. Resorts World opened on the Strip in 2021 for around $4.3 billion. The Fontainebleau opened at the end of 2023 for a reported $3.7 billion. At that level, the building itself is part of the product. Nobody spends $4 billion because they love pouring concrete. They spend it because an expensive room is how you signal an expensive experience, and an expensive experience is how you get people to lose expensive amounts of money. But the building is only the first bill. Before you take a single bet, you need permission, and permission is priced like a weapon. In Nevada, licensing is relatively cheap by the industry's standards. In New York, the state is currently handing out 3 new casino licenses, and just the license fee is $500 million, plus a required $500 million more in capital investment on top of that, before you've served one drink. One bidder in that process offered to pay a tax rate of 56% on its slot revenue just to win a seat at the table. You're not buying a building at that point. You're buying a lottery ticket, where the prize is the right to spend several more billion.
And in the biggest markets, you often can't buy in at all. Macau, in southern China, is the largest casino market on the planet. Its casinos pulled in about $28.3 billion in 2024, more than 3 times the entire Las Vegas Strip. But the Macau government issues exactly 6 concessions for the whole territory, and the next chance to bid for one doesn't come around until 2032. Your entire business plan can live or die on a decision made by a government you will never meet, so say you've cleared all that. You've got your building and your license. Now the good part. Where does the money actually come from? It comes from a single idea called the house edge, and it is the most reliable force in all of business. Every game on the floor is quietly tilted. Not rigged in the cheating sense. The equipment is honest. It's the rules that are tilted, so that over enough bets the casino keeps more than it pays out. Always. Roulette is the cleanest way to see it. A European wheel has 37 pockets, and the house edge sits at about 2.7%. Now walk over to an American wheel. Same game, same payouts, except somebody added one extra pocket, the 00. That one green slot nearly doubles the house edge to 5.26%. A player at the table cannot feel the difference. The math feels it on every single spin, forever. Blackjack, played well, is the best deal in the house. An edge of maybe 0.5% to 1%. Slots are a different animal entirely, running anywhere from 2 to 15% depending on the machine. And here is the part that breaks people's intuition. The cheapest machines carry the highest edge. The penny slots that a retiree feeds quarters into all afternoon are often taking 12 to 15 cents on the dollar. Per dollar wagered, she is quietly one of the most profitable customers in the entire building. far more profitable than a millionaire at the high-limit blackjack table, where the edge is a rounding error, which is exactly why, when you walk onto any strip floor, the first thing you see is a sea of slot machines. In 2024, slot machines made up roughly 74% of all gaming revenue on the Las Vegas Strip. Slot win on the Strip hit a record, nearly $4.9 billion, even in a year when the glamorous table games actually declined. The spinning reels, not the green felt, are the real engine, but the edge is only half the machine. The other half is keeping you there long enough for it to work. A casino has no windows and no clocks, and that's not an accident, it's engineering. The carpet, the lighting, the path from the table to the exit that somehow winds past 10 more rows of slots, all of it exists to erase your sense of time, so the arithmetic gets more innings. And the most surgical piece of that machine is the little loyalty card they offer you at the door. Slide it into a slot, hand it to a dealer, and every bet you make gets tracked. From that data, the casino calculates your theoretical loss, how much you're statistically expected to give up based on how much you bet and how long you play. Then it hands a slice of that number back to you as free dinners, free rooms, free show tickets. It looks like generosity. It's a calculated expense to keep you in the building. In Nevada alone, casinos gave away about $4.4 billion in these comps in a single fiscal year. They didn't lose that money, they invested it, and the house edge paid them back. At the very top of this pyramid sit the whales, the handful of high rollers who lose more in a weekend than most floors take in a month. Casinos will fly them in on private jets, hand them the penthouse, send a chef to their suite. In Macau, VIP tour packages have run past $100,000 a trip, with the casino fronting the guest that much in gaming credit on arrival. It sounds insane until you remember the math never sleeps. Spend $500,000 to host one whale whose expected loss is $10 million, and that's not a gift. That's a trade. So you've got a guaranteed edge, a floor built to keep people playing, and a system to reel back the biggest losers. This should be the easiest money in the world. Here's where it turns. Out of every dollar that machine generates, most of it is gone before you ever see it. Payroll is enormous. A strip resort employs thousands of people, and Nevada casinos added over 6,000 workers in a single recent year, many on new union contracts with pay bumps. Then there's tax. Nevada is famously gentle. Macau takes 40% of gross gaming revenue right off the top. New York's new casinos will pay at least 25% on slots, and some bid far higher. Then the costs nobody pictures. A surveillance operation with more cameras per square foot than a prison, fresh decks of cards swapped onto every table every few hours to stop cheating, tens of millions in physical cash sitting in the vault that has to be insured and guarded, and free drinks poured by the thousands. Not out of kindness, but because a slightly loosened gambler bets bigger and stays longer. And drunk gamblers fall, and fight, and sue. Which is why casinos carry liability premiums that would make a hospital wince. Now watch what that does. In a recent fiscal year, Nevada's casinos grew their total revenue by nearly 7%, and their combined net income still fell more than 40%. Read that slowly, because it's the whole business in one statistic. The top line is guaranteed by mathematics. Everything underneath it is a knife fight, and the knife fight is where owners bleed out. There's one more number worth sitting with. Statewide, gaming revenue is only about 36% of what Nevada's casinos actually take in. The rest, nearly 2/3, is hotel rooms, restaurants, shows, clubs, conventions. The modern strip casino is barely a casino. It's a resort that uses gambling as the bait to fill everything else. There's a reason that guarantee isn't enough on its own. The house edge only pays at scale and over time. It needs millions of bets, and years of them, to grind out its inevitable result. On any single night, luck can hand a table to the players. A whale can walk out $2 million ahead, and sometimes does. The math only asserts itself over the long run, and the long run turns out to be expensive to reach. Every casino spends years just earning back what it cost to build, and through every one of those years, the fixed bills, the debt, the payroll, the tax, the power, arrive on schedule whether the floor is packed or empty. The edge is bulletproof, the runway you need to reach it is not. That gap, between a guarantee that's completely real and a runway that's dangerously fragile, is where this entire industry actually lives. So how does a business with a guaranteed edge actually go bankrupt? Almost every famous casino collapse comes down to one of two mistakes. The first is too much debt. When you finance a build with borrowed money, the loan doesn't care about the house edge. It wants its payment whether the tables are packed or empty, and it wants it from day one, before the property has found its footing, before the locals have made it a habit. Load enough debt onto a casino, and you've built a machine that has to run perfectly from the opening minute. No casino runs perfectly from the opening minute. The second mistake is subtler and deadlier, building the wrong product for the market. And the best example ever built sits on the Atlantic City boardwalk. In 2012, a gleaming 47-story tower called Revel opened at a cost of $2.4 billion. It was meant to be Vegas-style luxury dropped onto the Jersey Shore, fine dining, striking design, a smoke-free floor, no cheap buffet. The problem was that Atlantic City ran on bus tours and buffets. The high-end crowd it was built for never showed up, and the regulars it snubbed never came. It even built its own power plant, which reportedly lost as much as $2 million a month. Revel posted an operating loss of $185 million in a single year, went through 2 bankruptcies, and closed after roughly 2 years. That $2.4 billion building was eventually sold out of bankruptcy for $82 million. Pennies on the dollar for the most expensive failure in the city's history. The math on the floor was never the problem. Everything wrapped around it was. And in case you think that's just an old cautionary tale, look at the Fontainebleau in Las Vegas. Jeffrey Soffer first pitched it in 2005 and broke ground in 2007. Then the recession hit, construction stopped, and the tower sat there, 70% finished, for 12 years, a giant steel monument to overreach. It finally opened at the end of 2023 at a cost of $3.7 billion, backed by a $2.2 billion construction loan. And it pays a fee of around $8,000 a day just to license its own name from a sister property. 23 years from idea to open doors. A full parking lot outside tells you nothing about whether the numbers inside are holding. That's the honest shape of this business. The edge gives you a guaranteed floor. Everything you build on top of that floor, the debt, the payroll, the taxes, the timing, the read on your own customers, is unguaranteed, and any one of them can sink you while the slot machines are still happily printing. So let's add it all up and answer the real question. What do you actually make if you do this right? Take the small version first. A regional casino for a few $1,000,000, quietly serving locals, modest revenue, modest costs, a couple of $1,000,000 in profit a year, and your money back in a handful of years. It'll never make you famous. It's about the most boring, reliable machine in American business, as long as you don't borrow too much and don't get greedy. Now the big version, a full strip resort that cost you $1 billion or more to build. In a strong year, a property like that can pull close to $1 billion in total revenue. And remember, only about a third of that comes from the gambling floor. The rest is the hotel and the restaurants and the shows the gambling was designed to fill. After everything, payroll, tax, debt, the whole knife fight, a healthy property can clear a few $100 million a year. But that number only exists if you survived the build, dodged the debt trap, read your market correctly, and didn't open into a downturn. Get any one of those wrong and you're not the next Vegas Sands, you're the next Revel. And if you do survive, if you clear 20 years of that pressure without breaking, the payoff is one of the largest fortunes in the world. Sheldon Adelson started buying casinos in the late 1980s. By the time he died in 2021, he was worth tens of billions of dollars, one of the great American fortunes, built on nothing more exotic than this exact trade, a guaranteed edge, defended for decades against everything trying to eat it. So if you ever do decide to buy a casino, hold on to the one rule that actually governs the whole thing. The house always wins. That part was never in question. The only real question is whether the person who owns the house lives long enough to collect. Make sure that person is you.